All right. Well, it just seems really confusing trying to read the misconduct and all that other stuff. So we'll start with the conclusions here. A lot of people have been following the story, so you can start with the conclusions and make up your own mind here. The allegation number one is the unlawful exercise of authority. And it says that in that he or she is without goods and sufficient cause makes an unlawful or unnecessary arrest. And I'll read from the report. The complaint stated that his arrest was unlawful because he was doing nothing wrong when police forced their way into his apartment despite his refusal to allow them entry. It's part right, part wrong. I didn't really refuse him entry. I just didn't want to be involved. You know? I but anyway, although the complainant and civilian witness lived in the same residence and maintained independent lives and separate living spaces, the officers and civilian witness one advised the entrances to the residence did not indicate that there was separate apartments. OIPRD investigators verified this during the civilian interviews. Why does that matter? So what? Furthermore, the complainant did not deny that he allowed the officers entry to the home to ensure that civilian witness one was not upstairs. Given that the home appeared to be a single family dwelling and the 911 caller was missing, officers had the authority to check the entire house and ensure the safety of all occupants. Fine. Do your job and leave me alone. Therefore, with respect to the allegations of unlawful exercise of authority against Constable Southcott and Blaine, upon review that all available information, the director has determined that there is insufficient evidence to conclude that misconduct occurred. Therefore, this allegation is found unsubstantiated. Like, are we looking at the same evidence? Okay? This makes no sense. All right. We'll go with, let's deal with these allegations. Number two, unnecessary exercise of authority. In that he or she uses any unnecessary force against a prisoner or other persons contracted in the execution of duty. The complainant alleges the constables tasered him twice without reason, although he was not resisting. During one of those two times, he was handcuffed. He also alleged they ping-ponged him between them, and after he was handcuffed, and that Constable Blaine placed him in a sleeper hold for no reason. Well, he did. And that the video footage provided by the complainant showed that he refused to follow police commands. It is determined that the arrest of the complainant was lawful, and police had given the complainant several opportunities to comply with the request to enter the basement. The officers asked the complainant multiple times to turn around and place his hands behind him, but he refused. Why was I arrested? I was asking, why do you need to come into my place? Because the next logical question would have been, what is my responsibility? I mean, I wasn't going to open the door because I did not want to be implicated in a situation. So if they're there to investigate a 911 mistaken call, as it was put over the air by the dispatcher, then do their job and leave me out of it. Instead, will you see the video? I didn't resist. I did have my hands behind my back. They just wouldn't handcuff him. I wasn't even moving. It's all lies. So unsubstantiated. Because I wasn't complying. I had no authority to comply. Was I being deputized? I had to assist in their investigation to see if there was any distress in the house. There was no distress when they walked in. They created distress. That's obvious to anybody who sees this story. And then allegation number three, discreditable conduct. And that he or she acts in a disorderly manner, in a manner prejudicial to discipline or likely to bring discredit upon the reputation of the police force of which the officer is a member. Now, I mean, I don't know how much more discreditable you can get than this story. It is the ultimate in discredit. The complainant alleges that the police officer's attitude the entire time was absolutely hostile. Yes. Absolutely focused. Yes. Not at all engaged in a conversation. No conversation happened. Monotonous tone of voice that is pointed, hostile body language. Yes, yes, and yes. He knows that the officer did not explain their authority with respect to 911 call. They did not explain themselves. The complainant felt that he had been targeted by the police. Well, wouldn't you feel that way? 1 minute you're alone in your house, and then all of a sudden they're in your house asking you questions. You answer them correctly to the best of that what you know, and that isn't good enough. And then when you was after 10 minutes of walking around and waiting for backup, they want me to open the door, which according to them, they have every right to walk in because they're already in. So why even ask me? Just walk in and do what you got to do. You don't see the caller. You don't see any signs of distress. You take what I said as the truth, that I don't know where she is. I have nothing to do with it, and deal with it amongst yourselves. Leave me out of it. But that's not what happened. And so what do we have? We have discredit brought upon the police as a result. How could it not be that way? He says, although the video footage did not show the officers explaining their authority with respect to 911 calls, the footage did not capture the entire incident. Constable Southcott said he explained to the complainant his authority to ensure the safety of everyone in the home multiple times. That is a bald-faced lie. If he had explained the safety, then I would not have needed to ask the question why, because he never explained it. Why do you? That is why I continually ask. Why are you in here? Why am I under arrest? Why do you need to come through the door? Never explained any of it. He's a liar. And this is on the face of it. Why would I ask a question if I know the answer? You ask a question because you don't know the answer. It says Constable Southcott said he recognized a complainant from school, whereas the complainant did not advise that he recognized the constable. Although the complainant may have had dealings with the police in the past, he did not advise it was either Constable Southcott or Constable Blaine. Both officers stated each they were unaware of the complainant's past complaints to the duty activism. Oh, whatever. Therefore, with respect to the allegation of discreditable conduct against Constable Southcott and Blaine, upon review and of all available information, the directors determined that is insufficient evidence to conclude that misconduct occurred, and therefore this allegation is found to be unsubstantiated. Well, your office is unsubstantiated because this is a joke. It is a joke. There's no other instances in case law in Canada that has a normal, sane individual living wherever in their rooming house. It doesn't matter. This situation that I'm in happens all the time. I just happened to be in that place because it was convenient for both of us, because I was going to move away and I wanted to pay low rent so that I can save and move out of this horrible fucking town. And in the process, they had to do this to me for no fucking reason. And then they invoke case law, R versus Story, reasonable grounds. Ours versus Story is the leading authority on what constitute reasonable grounds. To summarize, the definition of reasonable grounds is set of facts or circumstances which would satisfy an ordinary, cautious, and prudent person that there is no reason to believe an offense has been committed and which goes beyond mere suspicion. Who are these reasonable people who think that that was okay? Are we to suggest, what are we suggesting here? I mean, I just don't understand. He said I was making a fist with my right hand. I don't know what the hell he's talking about, making a fist. I didn't make no fist. Like, what? The fight, here it is. The complainant stated to turn around and cooperate, but suddenly he flung his one hand into the air and started to fight with Constable Southcott. Constable Blaine did not deploy the CEW. He hoped that they could get the situation under control using as little force as possible. The complainant told him that he was not going to be arrested, but eventually turned around and cooperated. However, when Constable Southcott started to bring one of the complainant's hands behind his back, the complainant threw out his hand at Constable Southcott in an aggressive manner. The complainant tried to get away from Constable Southcott, and when the fight started, that is a total lie. There was no fight. We all seen the video. The camera is perfectly still. As a matter of fact, I stayed out of the way and gave them every opportunity to do their job. And they only focused on me and attacked me specifically. And that is something they cannot deny because the video evidence is clear. They also walked into my place with the taser deployed, pointing at me. They did not look for her. If they were there to look for her, they could have walked in, looked around, and left and let me alone. But that's not what they did. And this thing about it's just none of it is true. I mean, he says would make a fist with my right hand, and why would I do that? Why would I strike an officer with two of them there, with one of them pointing a freaking taser at me? Why would I do that? That makes no sense. Why would I escalate? I just want to get back to doing what I'm doing. I want to get back to my life. I don't want it to be tied up in this. It is insane. And here they're talking about whether the conductive energy weapon struck me because of the clacking sound or the arcing, which apparently didn't make proper contact. So therefore, it was determined that they had to do it again. That's like, well, I'm sorry, we didn't hit him with the first bullet. Let's shoot him again. It's absurd. The story's absurd. It's completely absurd. It's a joke. We've all seen what it is. And if this is not discreditable conduct on a police force, what is? You know, and there's more. I mean, it just boggles my mind here. The officers described the different unfoldment events. Constable Southcott said that after he entered the basement and told the complainant he was under arrest for obstruct police, he put his hands on the complainant and attempted to handcuff him to the rear. The constable was able to place the complainant's left wrist in a handcuff while trying to handcuff the right hand. The complainant pulled away when the complainant brought his hand back. It was clenched in a fist, and he swung at Constable Southcott. Constable Blaine then deployed the taser. The complainant fell onto a couch and continued to resist arrest. This is bullshit. Okay, it's bullshit on its face. I know exactly what happened. Okay, and what happened? I put my arms back, and they wouldn't come close enough for him for his liking. I was turned around, like, I mean, he's got my one arm and he's torquing it, forcing me to turn one direction, but all he had to do was grab my other arm and put them together and handcuff me. But that's not the point. The point is like, why was I being handcuffed in the first place? There's more in here it's just beyond ridiculous. Anyway, it was shown to be not credible. And it's so, all I got out of this is I make my complaint to the OIPRD. The OIPRD go and show all the evidence of my complaint, including probably the video, to the police officers, and all that did was prepare them for court, thinking that they're going to get away with it. But fortunately, my lawyer was able to prove to them, and the case law that supports me as far as like exigent circumstances and all these things. None of this stuff is even mentioned in this report. It's like we're only going to use, you know, what is convenient for us, and an actual real case law. Well, you know, too bad, you know. We just, it was more important, you know, on Constable Blaine's conscience, that they wanted to make sure that the person who made the mistaken call wasn't bleeding in my basement, dying because we were, you know, she never answered the door, she never answered the call, and all I did was confirm what the dispatcher said, and that worry of his was going to affect his conscience. What about his conscience now? What about my life? And if you think that Christine's life wasn't affected by this, you damn right, well, right, it was affected. Her life was affected. My life was affected. My parents' life was affected. My children's life was affected. There's all kinds of people's lives that were affected because of those mistakes. And the blame squarely lies on Southcott and Blaine, and because they had escalated it. They took advantage of the situation and they made this happen. And now they're going to turn this on me. It's not going to happen, okay? I am not the perpetrator. I was simply living another day in my life when it got turned upside down by this absolute disgrace of a police force.